Hey guys, this is Drax, back with another How to Dominate guide, and this time we'll be checking out the Enforcer reinforcements. That being the Flametrooper, the B2 Super Battle Droid, the Deathtrooper, and the infamous Wookie Warrior. So in this one, I'll be guiding you through the abilities, weapons, and star cards on the Enforcers with the hope that you can use them a bit better in the future. We'll be starting here with the two abilities that are the same on every class, and these are Fortify and Overload. Now Fortify temporarily boosts your health, giving you more survivability. Important to use this just before you enter combat, especially when there are a lot of enemies around. This ability is quick to activate and lasts around 30 seconds. Although the Enforcer may seem cool, the biggest benefit to this class over the standard ones is that they have more health, so with this ability giving you even more, the difference is more noticeable and you will win more engagements purely because of the health buff. The central ability is called the same thing on every Enforcer but works slightly differently on every one, so let's take a look at this now. Overload overrides the weapons factory settings. It modifies the primary fire mode and super cools the barrel to prevent heat buildup. Once activated, the only real downside is that you lose some of your movement speed. They all work in a similar way, but some are best used differently, so I'll take you through them now. For the Super and the Deathtrooper, these two become more like turrets when you press the Overload ability. Slow movement and upping your damage output allows you to lock down a capture point, taking down any who dare push in on you. The Wookie Warrior and Flametrooper are different in the fact that you need to get up close to do most of your damage. With the Flametrooper, I'll find that jumping towards targets often helps you out whilst moving with the Overload ability on. And unlike the other three, the Wookie is actually able to roll with the Overload ability on, giving him superior movement and a more offensive ability. The fact that he can roll may be a bug as others can't, but for the time being, make sure to use that one to help you get around and hit those targets. And then moving on to the final ability, this is different for every Enforcer, but is always an explosive of some kind. Starting with the B2 Super, his wrist rocket, from what I can tell, is exactly the same as a rocket droid, so mainly does direct hit damage with a small blast radius. So to get the most out of this one, you just need to hit targets dead on. The Deathtrooper comes with a sonic imploder, which in simple terms is a giant flashbang. Unlike the officer's flash grenade, this can't be self-detonated, so just has a timer. Once it hits the floor, it sits upright and detonates, blinding and confusing enemies who are nearby for a set period of time. Basically, when attacking, throw it into the centre of rooms before you push in. This will leave any enemies that do get hit by the sonic blast open to all attacks. It will also deal a small amount of damage to any that are close to the centre of the blast. A good tactic is to throw an imploder in, wait for detonation, turn on Fortify and Overload, and then get in there and do some damage. The Flametrooper's explosive works differently again, as he has an incendiary imploder. This will burn anyone who gets close and splits into smaller fires when it explodes to cover a wider area. You can throw this directly into a group in a similar way to the standard imploder, or use it as a way to stop enemies coming through certain passages. The Flametrooper can be difficult to use, but I find that proper use of the imploder will help you out a fair bit. Try to funnel people into small corridors where you can use a combination of this imploder and your flamethrower to toast them together. And then we have the Wookie Warrior with his thermal imploder. This is simply a giant thermal detonator and should be used anytime you have a group of infantry or one singular harder enemy to deal with. It deals great damage on vehicles too, so don't be afraid to throw one of these towards any AATs or ATSTs. The weapons on each Enforcer variant, as spoke about slightly during the Overload section, all do better at certain ranges. Let's start here with the Wookie Warrior, which recently received a nerf. These guys primarily shine up close. Their bowcasters send 4 bolts flying out per shot, and to make the most of these shots you will need to be at close to medium range most of the time. The Overload ability gives you a bit more range, but still, even with this one on, you'll be more efficient up close. The Flametrooper with his flamethrower is similar but lacks any range, so you will need to rely on good positioning and movement to get in close and deal that damage. Any open areas and the Flametrooper doesn't perform too well, so stick to buildings, corridors and narrow pathways. Any choke points where enemies might flood in, and the Flametrooper is good for the job. Then in the final bracket we have the all-rounders, this being the Super Battle Droid with its wrist blasters and the Deathtrooper with that DOT-19X. These weapons perform well at all ranges, so to minimise damage taken with these two, you can simply stay back and pick people off. Since the Overload ability was changed in a recent patch for both of these guys, the recoil has been practically reduced to nothing, so you can use their heightened fire rate and range to easily lock down areas. So that's the abilities and weapons. Now let's check out the main way to improve these guys with their star cards. The first and only card I would say is a necessity here is Battle Hardened. The main difference between the enforcers and the normal classes is health. You have more by default, and in a 1v1 situation, say you both hit all your rounds, they will go down faster if they were only playing a normal class. Therefore, getting 20% more at top tier with a Battle Hardened card widens the gap a bit more, solidifying that feeling of a discount hero. In some ways these guys are better than heroes as they can always regen their health back to full. Now there are only a limited amount of cards for enforcers, and to tell the truth they are all pretty decent cards which I switch out depending on class or game mode. Normally in Galactic Assault alongside the Battle Hardened card I'll run these two for an offensive loadout. Expert Weapons Handling at top tier will make the Overload ability last 66% longer. It already has a pretty good duration as standard, but with this one equipped you can completely lock down an area for longer with the advanced firepower that the Overload ability supplies. And to complete this offensive loadout I go with Explosives Expert, which gives the explosive ability on each enforcer an 80% increased area of effect at top tier. The explosives on most of the enforcers are already quite strong, and with this card it pretty much guarantees a kill every time you use one of those explosive abilities. Even with the weakest of these, which is the wrist rocket, it goes back to a similar sort of feeling to the rockets we had on the last game, making it more usable because of that increased area. Now primarily you need explosives for groups, and you don't get so many of those in the blast or strike mode, so my preference here is to switch this card out for survivalist, which helps you to survive those constant assaults. And if you want to triple survivability, Enforcer Training is there to give you 50 health back at top tier for every elimination. Now I prefer to keep the Expert Weapons Handling as I feel the Overload ability is that important to this class, but having a triple health card loadout is definitely a viable option. So that's the star cards, and to be fair you can't really go wrong with what you choose. Just keep in mind that you might need certain cards more for some modes. These are just my recommendations after using all the enforcers for some time now. In conclusion, the enforcers are built for damage output and prevail against infantry thanks to their increased health. Overload gives you the ability to deal with any threat, whether that be groups of infantry or enemy heroes. Use these weapons and abilities wisely along with those star cards and I'm sure you'll dominate the battlefront with the enforcers. As always guys, I hope you have enjoyed this one and found it useful in some way. If you did, then I always appreciate a like as it lets YouTube know that the video is good and then YouTube will share it with others. I'm just waiting on the latest hero nerfs and buffs, and then I will have more vids coming your way. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and questions in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.